In every corner of the world, there are places where human beings stopped trusting the sky. They stopped building upward. They stopped facing the sun. And instead, they began carving, slowly, patiently, for generations, into the rock beneath their feet. Some of these places are well known. Some have been open to tourists. But others have only been discovered in the last 50 years, and a handful of them are still classified, still sealed, still actively hidden from the public. The question that runs through every one of them is the same. What were these people so afraid of that they chose to live in the dark? Conventional history gives us simple answers: invasions, wars, religious persecution. But these answers do not match the scale of what we keep finding. They do not explain why so many of these underground worlds were built in places where there were no known enemies. They do not explain why some of them appear to have been sealed from the inside. And they do not explain why, even today, certain governments refuse to allow excavation past certain depths. In the next few minutes, you will see 10 of the most disturbing underground cities and tunnel networks ever discovered. Stay until the end. The final one on this list was investigated by a government intelligence agency, and the men who entered it have never been allowed to speak publicly about what they found. Let's begin. Number 10. Coober Pedy, Australia. We start in the desert heart of South Australia, in a place so remote, so brutal, and so empty that it looks like the surface of another planet. It is called Coober Pedy, and almost no one lives on the surface. The name comes from an Aboriginal phrase meaning white man's hole in the ground, because that is what Coober Pedy is, an entire town built underground. Homes, churches, hotels, bars, bookshops, all carved into soft sandstone beneath the desert floor. The surface temperature here can reach over 50 degrees Celsius in the summer, hot enough to kill an unprotected human within hours. But 10 meters down, the temperature stays at a constant, comfortable 22 degrees year-round. The official explanation for Coober Pedy is opal mining. The town sits on top of one of the richest opal deposits on Earth, and from 1915 onward, miners began carving out the rock to find the precious stones. When they were finished, they simply moved into the holes they had made. But here is what locals will tell you if you sit with them long enough. The Aboriginal people of this region have stories that go back tens of thousands of years, stories that warn against being on the surface during certain times, stories of skies that turned dark, of fires that fell from above, of a world where the only safe place was beneath the ground. The opal miners did not invent the idea of living underground in this desert. They rediscovered it. Number 9. Burlington Bunker, England. Most people who drive along the highways of southwestern England have no idea what is beneath them. A few miles outside the town of Corsham, hidden in the chalk hills, there is an underground city. It does not appear on most maps. For nearly 50 years, the British government denied that it existed. It is called the Burlington Bunker, and it covers over 35 acres of subterranean space, roughly the size of a small town. Built during the Cold War, Burlington was designed to house 4,000 government officials and their support staff in the event of a nuclear attack. It has its own railway station, its own underground hospital, its own broadcasting studio for the BBC, a power plant, enough food and water for 3 months of total isolation. And here is the strange part. Burlington was completed in 1961, but it was kept secret until 2004. Every government official who worked there signed lifetime non-disclosure agreements. Maps of the area showed the surface as an ordinary quarry. Even local residents who lived directly above the bunker were never told what was beneath their homes. When the British government finally declassified Burlington's existence, they revealed something even stranger. The bunker is built on top of much older tunnels. Roman tunnels, medieval tunnels, tunnels that predate the bunker by centuries, some of which have never been fully explored or mapped. It seems Burlington was not the first underground refuge built here. It was just the most recent.
Number 8. Wieliczka Salt Mine, Poland. In southern Poland, just outside the city of Krakow, there is a cathedral. It has soaring arches, crystal chandeliers, carved religious figures along the walls, a massive painted ceiling depicting the Last Supper. By every measure, it is one of the most beautiful religious spaces in Europe, and it is 300 meters underground. The Wieliczka salt mine has been continuously operated for over 700 years. Generation after generation, miners dug downward into the rock salt. But somewhere along the way, what started as a mine became something else. The miners began carving. They sculpted entire chambers out of the salt. They built chapels, not one, but dozens of them. They made statues, reliefs, ornate altars. They carved chandeliers, polishing each crystal of salt by hand until it gleamed like glass. The complete tunnel network at Wieliczka stretches over 280 kilometers, descending more than 300 meters into the earth across 9 separate levels. Why did they do it? The official answer is that the miners were devout and they built chapels to pray for safety. But that does not explain the scale. It does not explain why generations of men, paid little and asked nothing, kept descending deeper into the rock to build a world that looked like the surface and yet was hidden from it. Some researchers have noted that the medieval region of Wieliczka was repeatedly devastated by waves of plague and invasion, and that for hundreds of years, the salt mine was the one place where people could go and not be reached. They were not just mining, they were preparing.
Number 7. The Cave City of Petra, Jordan. Most people know Petra for its famous facade, the treasury, carved into the red sandstone cliff, made famous by Indiana Jones films. What most people do not know is that the treasury is barely the entrance. Behind it, hidden deeper in the canyon walls, stretches an entire cave city. Thousands of rooms, tunnels, cisterns, burial chambers, a complete urban network carved into the rock by a people called the Nabateans, a civilization that controlled the spice trade routes of the ancient Middle East, and who were, by every account, among the wealthiest people on Earth at their peak. So why did they choose to live in caves? The answer the textbooks give is climate. The desert sun is brutal, and the rock walls offered shade. But that does not explain the design of the deeper chambers. Some of them have no natural connection to the surface. Some are sealed by stone doors. Some have small ventilation shafts that go up through 20 meters of solid rock, opening at the top in places no human could easily reach. This is not the architecture of a people seeking shade. This is the architecture of a people who needed to disappear. The Nabateans themselves vanished from history sometime around the 3rd century AD. Their empire dissolved. Their cities were abandoned. Their reasons were never recorded. What is left behind is a stone labyrinth that even today has not been completely mapped. Local Bedouin guides will tell you that there are passages that have never been entered by archaeologists. Some of them are blocked. Some of them lead deeper. And some of them, the Bedouins will not enter at all. Number 6. The Beijing Underground City, China. In the year 1969, the Chinese government quietly issued an order to the citizens of Beijing: dig. Within a decade, over 30 kilometers of tunnels were dug beneath the city by the population itself, citizens working with hand tools every evening after their normal jobs, in shifts that lasted for years. By the time they finished, they had built one of the largest underground cities in the modern world, capable of housing the entire population of central Beijing. The official reason was the threat of a Soviet nuclear strike during the height of the Cold War. The tunnels were designed to be a refuge for the people of the city if the bombs fell. But here is what the official records do not say. The tunnels were not built from nothing. Much of the network was carved through, around, and on top of older tunnel systems that already existed beneath the city. Some of these older sections dated back to the imperial era of the Ming and Qing dynasties. Some appeared to be even older, predating Beijing as a unified city by hundreds, possibly thousands of years. The Chinese government has never officially commented on the origin of these older tunnels. Most of them have been sealed off from the modern network, with no explanation given. A handful of Western researchers who have managed to visit the public sections describe being told politely but firmly not to ask about certain corridors. Whatever is in those older sections, the official Chinese position is that it does not exist.
Number 5. The ancient tunnels beneath Cu Chi, Vietnam. Most of the world remembers Cu Chi for the Vietnam War. The tunnel system built by the Viet Cong during that conflict became famous around the globe. A network of over 200 kilometers of narrow passages, traps, and hidden command centers, used to wage one of the most successful guerrilla campaigns in modern history. But here is the part that is rarely discussed. The Viet Cong did not build the Cu Chi tunnels from scratch. They expanded on a system that was already there. A system that had been carved into the laterite clay of southern Vietnam for centuries before the war began, possibly for over 1,000 years. The oldest sections of the Cu Chi network show construction techniques that are not Vietnamese in origin. The dimensions are different. The tools used were different. The orientation of certain passages aligns with ancient astronomical features that have no relevance to 20th century warfare. Local historians have suggested that the original tunnels may have been built by the Khmer civilization, the same culture that built the great temples of Angkor Wat. Others have proposed an even older origin, tied to the legendary kingdoms of prehistory that ruled the Mekong Delta thousands of years ago. What we know for certain is this. When the Viet Cong began digging during the war, they often broke through into chambers they had not made. Rooms with carved walls, storage spaces with strange pottery, passages that led downward into levels deeper than their own engineers had planned to go. They sealed many of these older sections off. They were focused on winning a war. They did not have time to investigate what lay beneath, but the older Cu Chi is still down there, waiting.
Number 4. The Edinburgh Vaults, Scotland. In the 18th century, the city of Edinburgh built a series of grand stone bridges to span its valleys. The most famous of these is South Bridge, a massive structure that allowed the city to expand outward. But the bridge was not just a bridge. Inside its enormous arches, sealed off from view by the buildings constructed on top, lay a hidden world, the Edinburgh Vaults. For nearly 100 years, the vaults were used as workshops, taverns, and storage spaces. Then, suddenly, they were abandoned. Doors were bricked over, entrances were sealed, the vaults were filled with rubble, and the existence of the rooms was deliberately erased from public memory. For 2 centuries, no one knew they were there. In 1985, during a renovation project, a worker accidentally broke through a wall and discovered the vaults exactly as they had been left. Personal possessions still on shelves, tools laid out on benches, children's shoes, plates of food long since decayed. The historical record gives us a partial explanation. The vaults had become overcrowded slum dwellings for Edinburgh's poorest residents. Crime had taken over, disease was rampant. The city had decided to seal the vaults off as a public health measure. But that does not explain everything. It does not explain why some of the vaults had been sealed earlier than others. It does not explain why certain rooms appeared to have been sealed from the inside with the doors bricked up by the occupants themselves. And it does not explain the persistent local tradition, passed down for generations, that there were things living in the vaults that the people of Edinburgh did not want to come back to the surface. The vaults are now open to the public as a tourist attraction. Most of them, the deepest sections, are still closed.
Number 3. Setenil de las Bodegas, Spain. In the rolling hills of southern Spain, in the province of Andalusia, there is a town where the homes are not built next to the cliffs, they are built inside them. Setenil de las Bodegas is one of the most extraordinary inhabited places in Europe. The town's houses, shops, and taverns are carved directly into the underside of an enormous overhanging rock cliff. The rock itself forms the ceiling of every building. Stone walls drop down from the cliff above to enclose the homes, and the rock continues over the streets, creating natural tunnels of habitation that stretch for kilometers. People have lived this way at Setenil for at least 12,000 years. Stone tools and burial sites have been found in the deepest chambers, dating to the late Paleolithic, the end of the last ice age, long before agriculture, long before metalworking, long before any of the civilizations we have textbooks about. Someone was already living here, deep inside the rock. The official explanation is shelter from the elements. The cliffs provide natural insulation and protection from rain and wind. And that is true. But there is something the official explanation does not address. The earliest settlers at Sedneil chose this specific cliff at a specific time, right at the end of the Ice Age, when the climate of southern Europe was undergoing a dramatic and not yet fully understood shift. The same period when, across the world, other communities were also digging downward, hiding inward, building shelters that suggest they were trying to escape something far worse than ordinary weather. What was happening at the end of the Ice Age that drove human beings in so many separate places to seek refuge in the rock? Mainstream science offers partial answers: climate change, rising seas, megafauna die-offs. But none of these explain why the people of Sedneil decided that the safest place to raise their children for the next 12,000 years without interruption was underneath several million tons of stone. They have never voluntarily moved out.
Number 2. Moose Jaw, Canada. In the small prairie city of Moose Jaw, in the Canadian province of Saskatchewan, there is a network of tunnels beneath the streets that the local authorities pretended did not exist for over 50 years. When they were finally acknowledged, the official explanation was that the tunnels had been built in the early 20th century to hide Chinese immigrants escaping racist persecution, and later used by American bootleggers during Prohibition. Both of these things appear to be partially true, but neither explanation accounts for the full size of the system. Modern ground-penetrating surveys have revealed that the Moose Jaw tunnel network extends far beyond what the official tours show. Some sections appear to predate the city's founding. Some descend to depths that no 20th century smuggler would have needed. Some lead toward, and possibly under, the surrounding prairie, in directions that connect to no known destination. What is most disturbing is the testimony of workers who, during city infrastructure projects in the 1980s and 1990s, broke into sections of tunnel that did not match any known map. Some of these workers reported finding carved stone passages far older than the brick-lined sections from the bootlegging era. A handful described finding chambers that contained items they were unable to identify. The Canadian government's official position is that no such older tunnels exist beneath Moose Jaw. The local historical society has been politely told to focus on the bootleggers and not on what may have been there before them.
Number 1. The Bucegi Tunnels, Romania. We end in the Carpathian Mountains of Romania, in a region called the Bucegi. In 2003, according to multiple Romanian intelligence sources, a joint team from the Romanian SRI and an unidentified Western intelligence agency conducted a covert exploration of a tunnel network discovered deep within the Bucegi Mountains. The tunnels were said to lead into a vast chamber, a chamber that, according to the leaked accounts, contained things that no one was prepared to see. The official Romanian government position is that this story is a hoax. The witnesses are unreliable. The documents are fabrications. The chamber does not exist. And yet, the Bucegi Mountains remain a restricted area. Certain caves in the region have been sealed by the government. Researchers who have requested permission to investigate the tunnel claims have been denied, repeatedly, for over 20 years. What is in the Bucegi tunnels, according to the rumors, is not just an underground city. It is something older. Something that, if it is real, would force humanity to reconsider not only its own history, but its place in the universe. We do not know if any of it is true, but we know this: the mountain is still closed, the questions are still unanswered. And in a country where the political system has changed 3 times since the rumors first emerged, the policy of refusing to investigate the Bucegi tunnels has remained completely consistent. Whatever is in there, somebody in power believes it is worth keeping quiet about. For decades, through multiple governments, through multiple regime changes. Something is in that mountain, and we are not allowed to see it.
10 places, 10 underground worlds, 10 reasons that human beings, at different times and in different parts of the planet, chose to leave the open sky behind and disappear into the earth. The official explanations cover some of what we have seen: heat, persecution, war, mining. But the pattern that runs across all of these places is something the official explanations cannot fully account for: the scale, the secrecy, the continuation of building long after any known threat had passed, and the consistent refusal, across governments, across centuries, across cultures, to allow full investigation of the deepest levels. We are looking at the visible part of something that goes much further down, something we are not yet ready to confront. If this list disturbed you, then you need to see what comes next. I made a video about the forbidden ancient texts that were hidden from humanity for good reason, and some of them describe exactly what may have driven these people underground. The link is on screen now. Subscribe before you go, because next week I am revealing the Sumerian discoveries that rewrite everything we know about human history. You will not want to miss what they wrote down.